From silent men to timid fathers, Five Nights at Freddy's has had many protagonists throughout the years who were all not as they seem. In this video, I will be talking about the evolution of every Five Nights at Freddy's protagonist that is from the games and the movie too, because why not? But to start all this, we have to begin with the original. In FNAF 1, we follow a man named Mike Schmidt, and that's it. A lot of these early protagonists had no writing. There was a popular game theory, the first FNAF game theory, that tied the series to a real-life massacre that took place at a Chuck E. Cheese. This theory is very controversial now because, like, what? It was a theory set basically in the real world and FNAF just isn't real, but maybe people thought it was deep or something back then. But the theory was that Mike was the one responsible for the missing kids, and the reason why the game took place from 12 AM to 6 AM was because the game was actually in his nightmare and 6 AM was him waking up from that nightmare. This theory is why I dislike when people are trying to get others into FNAF and they just say turn on the game theory playlist, because there's no way you would be less confused watching 116 videos where the information constantly flip-flops opposed to just one FNAF explained video. Overall, there's no writing yet, and none of that matters now anyways. So instead, let's talk appearance. What do we know about Mike's appearance? We also have nothing, except the fact that he has blue eyes. Remember that he has blue eyes. Nobody cared then, but this is actually very important for later. But there was a fan interpretation at the time that made him gray. Not literally gray, but like anonymous gray, like that sort of thing. And not a protagonist, so a little unrelated, but this era also gave birth to the red phone guy. This fan interpretation is probably why Scott made sure to make the canon phone guy blue, since it's just the opposite of red. Y'all know what I mean. So all I can do now is move on to the second installment. Now if the first game is Five Nights at Freddy's, and I had to make a second one, I would probably call it Five Nights at Freddy's 2. Who was the protagonist of the worst FNAF game? Or one of the protagonists for the worst FNAF game? Jeremy Fitzgerald. Jeremy is the main protagonist of FNAF 2, but just like Mike, we don't know much about him. There still is speculation, that he was the victim of the bite of 87. This was because of the paycheck, which says the year is in 1987, and because Phone Guy also says,
we have one more event scheduled for tomorrow, a birthday. You'll be on day shift. Stay close to the animatronics and make sure they don't hurt anyone, okay? When the place eventually opens again, I'll probably take the night shift myself.
So yeah, people think Jeremy was the victim during his final day shift. Unlike Michael, whoa, who's Michael? Unlike Mike, Jeremy was not doomed to the fate of becoming a gray Tumblr man. As far as I know, I couldn't find anything consistent for Jeremy really. The one I found the most was this design of a brunette guy with a question mark for a face. I don't think there was anything solid for Jeremy like Mike had. And in the future, Fan and Jeremy will become something far, far worse. We have a second protagonist in this game, which happens during only the custom nights, which is Fritz Smith. Again, we don't have much really. There was a popular theory at some point that Fritz Smith was Phone Guy. This was because Phone Guy says he's going to take a night shift after Jeremy, so presumably the next guy after him would just be him. But we know now that Phone Guy's name is Ralph and not Fritz, so Fritz is kind of just a random NPC, I guess. But that's a wrap for FNAF 2. There's not much to say honestly, at least not at the time. But just like Mike, I will return to Jeremy later on when we find out new information about him. But regardless, that moves us to the next FNAF game, which is who was the protagonist of FNAF 3? Or really, who did people think was the protagonist for Five Nights at Freddy's 3? Unlike FNAF 1 and 2, there are no paychecks in this game since the place burns down. So once again, writing-wise, nothing. The fandom did make up some things though, as fandoms do. There was a popular fandom that the protagonist of this game was a girl, and I'm pretty sure these started through self-inserts. But it was a fairly accepted fandom back then anyways. I mean, if it wasn't that, then it was... So next up is Five Nights at Freddy's 4, right? Wrong. The next protagonist was in Five Nights at Freddy's first book, which was... Charlie Emily is the protagonist of the novel trilogy for the first two books at least, and she will be the only book protagonist brought up here since she was the first Five Nights at Freddy's protagonist to get some actual writing. But before we get into that, let's talk appearance. Charlie has pale skin, long messy brown hair, and a thin mouth. She changes clothes a lot in the book, so I'm just gonna discuss the main design that gets depicted, which is when she wears black jeans, a denim jacket, a purple shirt, and combat boots. There was another official design at some point which also gave Charlie a green jacket and blue jeans. Charlie's father is Henry Emily, who is the co-owner of the franchise, who offed himself, as Henrys tend to do, leaving her to be raised by her aunt Jen. Her aunt taught her how to be very self-reliant and have good situational awareness. Charlie also tries to get into robotics since her father was into it as well. Charlie also has a twin brother Sammy, who is kidnapped by William Afton, until it is revealed that Sammy is actually somewhere else chilling, and William actually kidnapped and murdered the real Charlie, and the Charlie we've been following this entire time has been a robot. She also has a love interest named John, whose role is to exist. When it comes to her rogues gallery, she has faced off against William Afton himself along with Circus Baby. But overall, Charlie is a very paranoid and anxious and nervous person, but she can also be capable when she needs to be. And the robot reveal is one of the more controversial aspects of the novel trilogy, but that doesn't matter anymore since we're moving past the novel trilogy and going to Five Nights at Freddy's 4. The protagonist of this game is a crying kid. I'm not going to call him the other thing or the other thing or the other thing. I'll just call him Crying Kid. This is the first time a game protagonist spoke through text. And it's nothing crazy, but you know, there are some words on the screen and the words are conveying a story. This little boy is scared of everything. He's said to have seen something, and whatever he saw frightened him so much he became afraid of the animatronics. Not the characters though. He's still chill with the characters, just not the actual robots. He has an older brother and an empty room for his sister. In the day, he gets tormented by his older brother, but at night he has nightmares of these machines coming to life and hunting him down. On night 5 of the game, his brother takes a joke too far that results in a serious head injury. On the same night, he confronts the machine responsible, Nightmare Fredbear. A common theory when the game initially released was that the game took place in the crying kid's nightmare while he was in the hospital. There was a rare screen where we could see an IV drip and flowers next to the boy's bed. Many also figured that the end of the night being an alarm clock symbolized the player waking up from the nightmare, which was actually the same reason given way back in the very first FNAF game theory. After the incident, he is sent to the hospital, and then on his final night, he faces his true nightmare. He faces death. Before the boy passes away, his older brother decides to apologize for everything he's done. So yeah, that's pretty crazy, right? But let's talk appearance. The crying kid has pale skin, brown hair, black eyes, I think, gray striped black shirt, blue shorts, and brown shoes. Let's go back to the striped shirt. Due to the black and gray pattern, there was speculation that this kid was the marionette, due to him having a striped pattern as well. There is also the fact that the crying kid cries in a similar pose to the puppet in FNAF 3. We know now this is way off and not close to being the case at all, and I'm pretty sure this probably wasn't even intentional, but maybe it was. We'll come back to FNAF 4 as well, since even today, this kid is still being theorized about. There are still hundreds of theories that surround this kid. But FNAF 4 did get a slight add-on due to the new information that was in 5 games in, and we finally meet the real protagonist for most of Scott's era. Michael Afton is the son of William Afton and the older brother of Elizabeth Afton. Michael in this game is sent to an underground facility by his father to put his sister back together. So we know Michael's listening to William, but we also know Michael looks like William. We know this because Michael says it.
They were all there. They didn't recognize me at first, but then they thought I was you.
So what does Michael look like? To figure that out, we have to talk appearance. Based on his sprite and the hard mode custom night cutscenes, we can see that Michael Afton is pale with blue eyes, brown hair, brown shoes, blue pants, and a long sleeve purple shirt. Despite being the game's main character, this is all we have. So maybe one day Scott could stop being stupid and just give us an official 3D design already. In the game, Michael faces off against the Fun Times until on the 5th night, Circus Baby, as entered, is able to lead Michael into the scooping room and scoop out his insides and then wear his body. The Fun Times escape as entered through Michael and are actually fine for a couple of days. I don't know what they did as a human for those days, but over time Michael's body starts to rot and the Fun Times are forced to leave his body. But even after all of that, Michael still somehow survived. There actually is an explanation later, but at the time of this game it just looks like Michael has like insane willpower or something. The next thing I have to mention here is that Mike is Mike. You know. Michael Afton is theorized and basically accepted as Mike Schmidt. There will be more evidence later, but the simple idea is that Mike is Michael going under a fake name, which is not uncommon for FNAF characters to do. William did it in the books and movies, and Vanessa did it in the movie as well. The main idea was that Michael went under Mike Schmidt to be unassociated with William. Michael also goes under Mike, not just in Social Location, but somewhere else in the future as well. It's also worth mentioning that Michael has blue eyes just like Mike Schmidt in the FNAF 1 Game Over screen. This had to be intentional since eye color was very important in Social Location, like how Baby's eyes were blue but turned green after being possessed by Elizabeth, or how Michael's eyes turned purple after being taken over by Ennard. But how does this connect to FNAF 4? Well, that is through the physical FNAF 4 location that can be seen in the breaker room. We can see the map lines up with FNAF 4 even down to the house. On top of this, everyone knows the 1983 code by now as well, which shows the camera footage from the FNAF 4 gameplay location. This is the house of the Afton family, making the girl's room from earlier Elizabeth's room. And since the crying kid is dead, and also died in 1983, which is the same code used to pull up the FNAF 4 observation cameras, that would make the only remaining Afton child, Michael. making Michael Afton the Foxy brother from Five Nights at Freddy's 4. So we can see that Michael didn't start off as the greatest person. We know he regrets it now since he did apologize, but on paper, Michael still did kill his little brother. It's also theorized that by Michael doing this is what set off the events of most of FNAF's main story. Michael kills his brother, William's family is now even more imperfect compared to Henry's, which resulted in William killing the game version of Charlie out of jealousy. However, that is just one of many theories. Back to Michael. Now that we are aware of Michael's past, it also explains why he would listen to William to try to save his sister. It's because he feels guilty about being the one responsible for his brother's death. It's also why I think Michael didn't move when getting scooped. People make jokes about it, but I really do think Michael just thought that he deserved it. If him dying was what it would take to save his sister, I think he would have been fine with that. I think that's what he wanted to happen even. This aspect of Michael's character of feeling guilty and flawed and trying to make up for his past mistakes is one of the main reasons of why people like Michael so much despite not having much material for him, at least by main character standards. But once again, FNAF 4 remains a problem in the conversation. One of the big reveals of such a location was that FNAF 4 was real. We even see that the nightmares are labeled with the same squares that are used for the fun times, meaning the nightmares are in fact physical. But this confused everyone because if FNAF 4 was real, what was up with the IV that could randomly appear next to the bed? Why did the night end when the player woke up at 6 AM? Why were they called nightmares if they weren't dreams? All of this was answered in 2017, which was the year not only the survival logbook released, but also Michael Afton is also the protagonist of Pizza Simulator. We know Michael is the protagonist because of Circus Baby's voice lines.
You're not who I expected to see.
We also know since when Henry tries to destroy everything, he says,
"To you, my brave volunteer, who somehow found this job listing not intended for you. Although there was a way out planned for you, I have a feeling that's not what you want. I have a feeling that you are right where you want to be."
Pizza Simulator shows blueprints of how the scooper works, which shows it is a remnant injector, meaning when Michael got hit with the scooper, he was actually given some of that super soul juice, which is why he was able to live after Ender left his body. That is it though. Michael burns with the rest of his family, and they are done. Until other important things came out, like the survival logbook. The logbook was an in-universe journal that belonged to Michael himself. However, it is debated upon how much of this book is meta or how much is in-universe. We get to see a little of Michael's personality through this. We see a bit of his humor, his habits, and his deranged drawings, and one of them is Nightmare Fredbear, under a question about dreams. But since FNAF 4 is real, some people are mostly split on why is this in Michael's logbook. It comes down to mostly two interpretations. It used to be three since some people thought Michael was the crying kid, but we know that is not the case. But the other two are that the crying kid is experimented on, the crying kid haunts Michael, then Michael gets dreams of those hauntings. The other interpretation being just that Michael was the one being experimented on and not his brother. That being said, the official encyclopedia does list the crying kid as a protagonist for FNAF 4, which would align more with the theory that Michael is just having dreams from the perspective of his brother. This way, waking up at 6 AM could still work, the rare screens can still work, and not to mention the phone guy from FNAF 1 can be heard sometimes within the ambience of FNAF 4's gameplay. This would also act as another piece of evidence to tie Michael to Mike Schmidt. No matter which way you look at it though, Michael draws Nightmare Fredbear and it is listed as a dream. Along with this, the logbook shows FNAF 3, which leads people to think Michael was the protagonist for that game as well, meaning he would be the protagonist of FNAF 1, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Although, today some people think the FNAF 3 guard is not Michael at all. Some people think it's Henry or some random from the books, but it legit doesn't matter who this is because it doesn't change anything. So in conclusion, most people believe Michael is just the protagonist of FNAF 1, 3, 5, and 6. The logbook also revealed the spirit of Golden Freddy's name, which was... Along with this, the book led to the popular theory, Golden Duo, which was the theory that Golden Freddy had two spirits inside of him, of one being Cassidy and the other being the crying kid. Yes, this kid is back again. The protagonist of FNAF's 4th game is still being brought up even after the rest of his family is dead. There's so many theories and interpretations that involve this kid that I'm going to stop bringing him up from here on out. Screw this kid. The next game was Ultimate Custom Night. In this game, you're William Afton himself, the man responsible for the missing kids, the fun times, the experiments, everything. We know this due to the voice lines from many of the game's characters. In this game, William Afton is trapped in a place. Originally, people thought it was purgatory or hell, but due to Fazbear Frights, which had a similar set of events, we know this game is technically a nightmare in William Afton's head. This nightmare is being controlled by Golden Freddy. We know this because he appears when you beat 50/20 mode. Golden Freddy in this game is referred to as the one William Afton should not have killed. Cassidy's spirit being the most vengeful is established here, but some people argue it goes back to FNAF 3 since Golden Freddy's spirit is the one to chase Afton into the springlock suit. Cassidy's also seen to be vengeful in the Five Nights at Freddy's movie and movie novelization. In this game, William is very silent, but you can hear what people speculate is him screaming in the Old Man Consequences section and very rarely on the home screen. Some people think it's William calling out for Mike or calling out for Henry, or maybe it's nothing and it's just him in agonizing pain. Whatever, the next game was FNAF VR. At least that's what everyone calls it, because the official name was... Just saying this now, from here on out, everything in the Steel Wool era is ongoing and heavily speculated on. This current era is still happening right now, so there still might be some crazy reveals with some of these guys. In FNAF's first VR game, the role of the main character in this game is to be a beta tester for Fazbear Entertainment. It's speculated that the main character of this game was a woman named Vanessa. In this game, she is another silent protagonist. This game has only bad endings where no matter what you do, you get taken over by Glitchtrap. Vanessa's story originally ended with Glitchtrap taking over her body. That was until the Curse of Dreadbird DLC that gave the first look at the Vanny mask. Putting on the mask shows Vanessa having a conversation with Glitchtrap.
Yes, I hear you. I know. No. There's no miscommunication. I understand. Yes, I have it. I made it myself. I think you would like it. No one suspects anything. Don't worry. I'll be ready. And I won't let you down. It will be fun.
Vanessa's character does not go the direction you would think it would go based off this conversation. Now I'm not gonna lie, there is a lot to Vanessa, like probably more than Michael, and there's even discussion that maybe her character took a different direction behind the scenes. So instead, let's talk appearance. At the time of this game, Vanessa had no appearance, but now we know that Vanessa is pale with long blonde hair, green eyes, freckles, and in the future she will don a security guard outfit. But this is Vanessa post Glitchtrap. Thanks to the FNAF AR emails, we know what Vanessa looked like before Glitchtrap. Vanessa is said by a co-worker to have had rainbow streak hair extensions, and the emails also tell us that Vanessa had an interest in baking, fashion, and cute things overall. Under Glitchtrap's control, Vanessa also looked up a lot of violent things. That was it for this game, but we did learn more about Vanessa in the next game, which was Vanessa is not the protagonist of this game, but it still did add on to her character. But we learned that Vanessa had an abusive father and her mother speculated to off herself after losing custody of Vanessa. Vanessa's father is also a man named Bill, who is speculated to be
William? What a surprise!
People think her father is William Afton. This is because 1. Vanessa's last name starts with an A, so does Afton's, obviously. Bill is sometimes short for William, and William Afton is a manipulative father. And I think that's kinda it. All that said, Vanessa's last name starting with an A is from data mined content, so it's never actually brought up in the canon. People ignore all of these things anyway, since Vanessa being Afton's kid just kind of sucks. We can also see that when Vanessa was under Glitchtrap's control, she is responsible for at least 9 missing kids. Glamour Freddy mentions these incidents as well. Vanessa's fate can change depending on the ending, but canonically, Vanessa is not free of Glitchtrap thanks to the help of this game's real main character, Gregory. Appearance. Gregory was the first FNAF protagonist to get a 3D model, which why was it Gregory? Regardless, Gregory is a short kid with pale skin, brown hair, brown eyes, a blue striped shirt, khaki shorts, red Glamour Freddy shoes because he is a Glamour Freddy fan. In this game, all we know about Gregory is that he's kind of diabolical. Gregory was also the very first protagonist to successfully fight back against the animatronics. And if we were to take things from the Tales books, at some point he was under control by Glitchtrap and is responsible for the death of a few therapists. We know now Tales aren't connected, but some people already came to this assumption without the book, so you can take it how you want. Gregory's whole everything is still up for discussion today. There's a theory that he is a robot, kind of just like Charlie, since there is a code in a secret room that lists a set of actions, and these actions line up with the things Gregory does throughout the game. There's even some theories that he might be
No! It can't be! No!
But after the events of Security Breach, the Pizzaplex was left in The protagonist of the Ruin DLC is a girl named Cassie. Cassie is a lot nicer to the animatronics than Gregory, and some people even prefer her over Gregory. But you know how things are, let's talk appearance. Cassie has darker skin with freckles, brown hair, a white shirt with a collar, a red button-up sweater, shorts over black leggings, and purple Roxanne Wolf shoes because she is a Roxanne Wolf fan. When Cassie was all alone at her own birthday party, Gregory was the one to show up to attempt to comfort her. This moment is what most likely led to their friendship and is the reason why Cassie would try to rescue Gregory after he gets trapped deep inside the Pizzaplex. This shows that Cassie cares a lot about her friends and is very determined since this whole situation is pretty insane. Throughout the game, we find out a little bit about Cassie's father. We learn that she is familiar with the Faz wrench because her father works as a Faz technician. Through other collectibles in the game, we find out that her dad's favorite animatronic was Bonnie. This would seem random to include, but due to Cassie's reaction under an AR Bonnie mask collectible, she seems to recognize it. People made fun of the theories then, but there was another character in the series who wore red, had dark skin and brown hair, and wore a Bonnie mask. The Bonnie bully from FNAF 4, who was also one of Michael Afton's friends. Was it possible that Cassie's father was also the kid who helped Michael kill his brother? We'll come back to this in a little bit, but back to the main objective. Cassie does wind up finding Gregory, until of course, it's not actually Gregory, but She evades the mimic by running into an elevator, at least for a few seconds, until Gregory drops the elevator, leaving her down below. There is an argument if Gregory even was the one to drop the elevator, and let's be honest, he definitely did. Come on, we can all admit this, right? It was him. And let's just reveal it's not him, then I didn't say any of this. But let's think about the situation. The mimic is dangerous, you know, he's got insane feats now. Why would you risk letting him loose? I mean, this is an ongoing story, so we know he's going to escape anyway, but in Gregory's position, yeah, drop the elevator, buddy. But yeah, this was the end of Cassie's story. Is she dead? I think so. Unless it's revealed that she's alive, then I didn't say any of this. But does anybody remember Mike? Not that one, but that one. Because in 2023, he returned in the new... The protagonist of the FNAF movie is Mike Schmidt. He is also currently not a part of the Afton family. But just like Michael Afton, he is the oldest out of 3 kids. He has a younger brother, Garret, and a little sister, Abby. Mike in this movie has nightmares of when he was given the task of watching his little brother, which he failed to do, resulting in him getting kidnapped. So he forces himself to dream in hopes that one day he will be able to remember the man who stole his brother. Both of movie Mike's parents are also seemingly dead. We know his mother passed away, but his father is never outright stated to be dead. All of this results in Mike being someone who cares a lot about his remaining family, which is why he even took the job in the first place. Movie Mike led to many new theories, but also just some consistency within the characters if you were paralleling him to Game Mike. Movie Mike and Game Mike both blame themselves for the fate of their younger brothers. Movie Mike is way more innocent obviously, but they both feel guilty regardless. They both have the same kind of attitude and personality with their kind of like stoicness. They both have little sisters, and the movie showing Abby being born after Garret kind of showed that maybe Game Elizabeth was younger than the crying kid. That was kind of a debate at some point on which sibling was older. Mike is expected to go through a lot in the second movie, but for now this is all we have of him. This version of Mike is paranoid, he's overprotective, and he's willing to take matters into his own hands. But back to the games. Next is Help Wanted 2 or FNAF VR 2 or whatever you want to call it. In this game it is speculated that we play as Cassie's father, who is a technician for Fazbear's. To add on to the theories about the Bonnie Bully being Cassie's father, in this game's version of Princess Quest it is possible to obtain a Bonnie mask with the phrase, "This looks familiar." Again, only one character in the entire series has worn a Bonnie mask like this. I think it's safe to say that Cassie's father is the Bonnie Bully from FNAF 4. There's also theories that this man's name is Jeremy, specifically Jeremy Fitzgerald, who was last left in the worst FNAF game. Unfortunately for Jeremy, he is still tracked in FNAF 2 because the only evidence to prove that Cassie's father is Jeremy doesn't exist. It's mostly just people trying to connect everything. I mean, Michael had this huge lore placement just all of a sudden becoming the protagonist for Scott's era, so I think people were trying to do a thing where Michael's friends were like the protagonists for certain games. In the main ending of this game, the player gets trapped in a staff bot and gives a Vanny mask to Cassie, which you can see the other side of in the Ruined DLC. This game also gave an update on Vanessa, showing that she killed Glitchtrap. I don't know why she did that, it's not like Glitchtrap did anything wrong. And finally, at the very end, we have a man who some people consider the best Five Nights at Freddy's protagonist. Those guys are high, but let's discuss everything about Arnold from... I'll talk about the canon definitive stuff before going into theories and speculation. Canon-wise, we know Arnold is kind of just like a dog. He just does what he's told, and even in the secret ending, the suit he gets stuffed in is a dog because that's what the mimic figured suited him best. In this game, he's very tired since he is coming off a 36-hour shift, which makes it kind of hard to get a feel for what his personality would be like just on a regular day. But this is where we get into the cut content, which really should just be called cut context because this actually adds a lot to Arnold's character. It is cut content though, so it's debatable if it's canon or not. I'd say no. I mean, it is cut content, like it's not in the game. But cut voice lines from Arnold tells us that he has a wife and kids.
What family? My parents are dead. My wife left me last year. Oh God, I haven't seen my kid for...
Yeah, crazy stuff. But let's end this off with appearance. Arnold wears clothes, I guess. I don't know what to add to this, but overall a very simple protagonist. But that's why people like him. Arnold has no greater connections to Freddy's or the Aftons or Edwin or Henry or nobody. He's just some guy. But that is it. So I have one question for you. Comment down below who is your favorite Five Nights at Freddy's protagonist. For me, it's between Charlie and Michael Afton, but Gregory, Vanessa, and Cassie are alright too. And Arnold is okay. Comment, like, subscribe, because if you do, maybe Scott would make FNAF real.